Hey guys, Marissa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Today we're going to make this fun little "You're the Cherry to My Sundae" note card. Not much stamping, but a lot of die cutting. So let me run you through the Stampin' Up! Products that I've used to make this card, and then we'll get started. Okay, so I used my popcorn box thinlits, and the die that we're using from that set is this scallop edge for the top of the popcorn box. We're going to use that to scallop our paper, so I'll put that one aside. I've also used my Stitched Shapes Framelits dies, and we're going to use the biggest circle from that set. And my layering circle framelits, we're going to use the biggest scalloped circle, but we're also going to grab this one that's about 2.5 inches, and I'll show you why in just a minute. I've got my Cool Treats bundle here. It's the Cool Treats stamp set. That's where we're going to get our "You're the Cherry to My Sundae" sentiment. And then the Cool Treats, the matching dies here. For our consumable paper products, we're going to need a Pool Party card base. This is 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. Got a couple of pieces of the Tasty Treats Designer Series paper. There's this Watermelon Wonder stripe piece that's 4 1/4 by 2.5. And then I have this polka dot piece that's about 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. We'll need a piece of this kind of waffle pattern for the bowl. And this is 1 3/4 inches tall, and you'll need about 2 inches wide. I've got some specialty paper here. I've got some silver foil. This is 1/2 inch by 1.5 inches. And some silver glimmer paper. About 3.5 inch square will do. I happen to have a bigger scrap, so that's what I'm gonna run through. But 3.5 inches will do ya. And then we need various pieces for die cutting. There's some Pear Pizzazz, Watermelon Wonder, Early Espresso, Pool Party, Peekaboo Peach, and I have about a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of Whisper White here for die cutting. I also have this fun mini striped Watermelon Wonder ribbon. This will be retiring. It's one of the in colors for 2015 through 2017, and it goes great with this Tasty Treats Designer Series paper. So we're going to need about maybe 6 inches of this. Stampin' pad, we'll need Early Espresso, and let's get started. Okay, I mentioned that there's a lot of die cutting on this card, so let me show you my first pass through here. I've got my stitched circle and one of my ice cream. I've got both of my scallop circle dies here on the glimmer paper. And the reason why we're doing that, let me run that through, is so that when we get that final cut, that glimmer paper scallop circle for layering, we're going to have a scallop circle that's like a wreath. It's empty in the middle. We're going to save this one for another project and use this one on today's project. That way, this glimmer paper is specialty paper. It's a little pricey, but if we cut this piece out for another project, the scallop circle is going to just barely peek out from underneath the stitched circle, and we've conserved all this glimmer paper right here for another project. So that's our first pass through. I'll be right back. We're going to run it through some more stuff through the Big Shot in just a minute. Okay, I'm all set up for my next pass here, and you'll see that I've got my spoon on the foil, I've got my dish on the waffle, little ice cream topping. I'm going to scallop the edge of this Pear Pizzazz polka dot piece. I've got this little cherry die that we're sending through on some Pear Pizzazz, some sprinkles, and another ice cream scoop. Okay, so I'm all set up for my third pass now. I've got ice cream, sprinkles, topping, and a cherry. Okay, we're almost done here. Next pass through the machine, I have my sprinkles and my topping. And for our final pass, I told you it's a lot of die cutting, but well worth it. I've got one more color, the Pool Party with the sprinkles. Each time we cut, we're getting 3 little sprinkles, and we're doing it in 4 colors. got a little tip for you. Okay, so when the sprinkles come out of the Big Shot, they're stuck in the little cutting pad there. Let me show you. Do you see those itty bitty little sprinkles? They're so cute. Oh my gosh. All right, so they're stuck in there. My best tip for you is to just lift the die, leave them in there, and then I've got some low tack tape, a little washi tape here, and just touch this little sprinkles with the washi tape, and they come right off of the cutting platform, and you won't lose them while you're cutting the other colors. So just leave them stuck to the back of that tape, and then when you go to apply them to the project, you'll know exactly where they're at. Okay, so we're back with all of our little bits. Let's go ahead and assemble, and while we're talking sprinkles, look at that. Isn't that the cutest thing you've ever seen? So it's well worth cutting those little die cut sprinkles. Maybe not to mass produce this card, but to make one for somebody who's special. For the cherry to your sundae, this card's well worth the die cutting. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get a little bit of fast fuse and some snail adhesive, and we're going to turn these pieces right here into one single layer, and that'll make them easier to handle. So on the back of the watermelon stripe, we're going to add some snail, and then using our grid paper, we're going to make a nice even scallop border. So I've got the flat end of the scallop paper lined up on one of my grid lines, and then I'm going to bring my watermelon paper in and line it up so that it's parallel with this other grid line here. It's not quite on the grid line because I want a little bit more Pear Pizzazz polka dot than that. And then we'll use the perpendicular grid lines here to make sure that our paper is nice and straight. All right, then we're going to flip that over and put some fast fuse along the back sides here. That fast fuse along the sides here is going to be the perfect adhesive to hold the tails of our ribbon. So we're going to cover over the seam with our ribbon and fold it over and tuck it into the fast fuse. There, now we have that nice layer that we can go ahead and adhere to our card. A little more fast fuse over those ribbon tails. Okay, make sure that our card opens up on the right side. There we go. And this is going to go across the top. Okay, now we're ready to stamp our sentiment. So let's go ahead and get that here, the cherry to my sundae. Okay, so I'm using my grid paper here, and I'm watching this line right here. And what I'm making sure this line does is when I look down through my stamp, I'm making sure that this line in my grid paper goes right through the bottom of the words "to my sundae." With the clear stamp, you can see that. And so now I know that my sentiment runs parallel to that line, which means it's not going to go uphill or downhill. And then when I add the block, and I make sure the block right here, the edge of this block runs along this grid line. Now the cherry to my sundae sentiment runs at a perpendicular line to the edge of my block. So when I line the edge of my block up to the bottom of my card, I know that my sentiment isn't running uphill or downhill. Clear? Clear as mud? I hope that helps. Okay, so I've got my early espresso ink here. And let's bring in my Stampin' Pierce mat. I'm taking some time to ink my sentiment well. That cherry is a bold word, and I want to really get good ink coverage on it. And you can see right through that stamp and make sure that you've got it. Once you've got good ink coverage, you're going to line up the bottom of the block with the bottom of the card, and then set the stamp and let the ink transfer. Take your time here, it's important. Okay, so we got a good bold sentiment that way. And let's finish assembling. All right, so here's that glimmer paper ring that we made and our stitched circle. Let's take some glue dots and adhere the stitched circle to that glimmer paper ring. So what I'm going to do is add 4 glue dots at 12, 3, 6, and 9 on the clock on the back of this stitched circle. And then I'm going to line it up and adhere it to the glimmer ring. See, nobody would ever know that you cut the center out of there for another project. All right, I'm going to use some Tombow liquid glue, this multi-purpose liquid glue, and add it to the back of all of my toppings. And then I'm going to adhere the topping to each ice cream scoop. All right, so with 3 scoops of ice cream in the bowl, I'm going to take just a bit of this multi-purpose liquid glue. I ran a small bead along the top rim of the bowl, and I'm going to adhere 2 of my ice cream scoops. And I want them to hang off the bowl just a little bit. Okay, next up we'll get a dimensional. And we're going to adhere this 3rd scoop onto the sundae. Now before I put the 3rd scoop, I want to get my little spoon in there. I'm going to add a dab of multi-purpose glue on the bowl of the spoon. And I've got the adhesive exposed on my scoop. And I'm kind of audition where I want that spoon to go. Let's get the sample in there so you can see what I'm doing. Got those things where I like them. I'm going to adhere them down. And next up, I've got my little Pear Pizzazz cherry and my Watermelon Wonder cherry. I'm going to snip the stem off of the Watermelon Wonder cherry. And then put a dab of multi-purpose glue on the Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to adhere the Watermelon Wonder cherry right on top of the Pear Pizzazz. Now everything's the right color. Okay, so remember those little sprinkles that I put off of, or peeled off of the cutting pad from my Big Shot? There they are. They're all there, nice and accounted for. I'm going to remove them from the tape and just put them here on the mat where I can use them. They won't get lost now. There's all my adorable little sprinkles, aren't they great? Okay. So the first thing we want to do here is add our cherry, because that is going to take up the most space. So a little multi-purpose glue on the back of that cherry and put it on the sundae where you like it to be positioned. Now for our little sprinkles, let me show you a trick. Okay, you can use your paper piercer here, and I've got the edge of my dimensional sheet. I'm going to put the tiniest dab of multi-purpose glue and let that sit for a second. And then I'm going to decide where I want my first 3 sprinkles. Where I want those sprinkles, I'm going to just put the tiniest streak of multi-purpose glue. Then I'm going to touch this dab of glue that we put on the dimensional sheet, and I'm going to pick up the sprinkle, whichever color I want, using the sticky end of my paper piercer. And just touch the sprinkle into the glue. Don't worry if the tiniest bit seeps out from around the sprinkles, because a adhesive remover after it's dry will just take that stray adhesive right off. With the tiniest little dabs that you're using, you probably won't have to worry too much. All right, so then we're going to add another 3 next to the cherry here. So add in just the tiniest drop where I want my sprinkle. You make sure the paper piercer's still got that little bit of stick, and pick up a sprinkle and add it into the adhesive. And I want another little sprinkle on this side of the cherry. I'm barely even squeezing, I'm just kind of streaking. What color didn't I use? The Watermelon Wonder. Okay, and then the last 3 sprinkles, just like I did the first ones. Okay, once your sprinkles are done, you're going to want to just kind of pinch and twist, get that stickiness off the edge of your paper piercer, and you're all set. Let's finish up our assembly. Just a little bit of dimensionals to go. Okay, so I've got my little sundae here, and I'm going to add some dimensional adhesive on the back. You'll notice that I cut a tiny little rectangle for the handle of the spoon, and then we'll just put a few on the back of the sundae. Now my adhesive is all exposed, and I'm going to line up my sundae so that the base is along the bottom there, and you'll notice the tiniest bit of the handle overlaps. So let's turn this over and add some dimensionals. And one thing that we want to do here is take another skinny little rectangle piece, and we want to add that over the handle here, because that's going to need a little double reinforcement. All right, got my dimensionals. Let's expose the adhesive. Okay, add the sundae to our card so that it's centered above the sentiment. And there they are. You're the cherry to my sundae. If you've got any questions about this project, email me, Marissa@kitchentablestamper.com. Thanks for watching.